You were born ready?
Yes.
All right. All right. I think we're on again, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I'm Oskar, and
I'm
is
Fred.
And if you are joining here for the first time, I don't know if you remember, some of you, but we did these live Facebook shows here during COVID. We started during COVID to connect with people. And then then normal life took over, and it faded away a little bit, but we're getting back on track. Mm-hmm. So we're going to get back on track. So we appreciate everyone's good, kind words to tell us that we should get back on track and have some informative talks here. Right. We'll see how informative they are. So the way we do this, we have our wonderful team here. I don't know if some of you know Neil Bradley, who's our library guru, but he's also our internal MacGyver, and he's hooking up and making a studio out of the library here. So he's behind the camera setting this up. We also have Jen here sitting next to us, answering some questions and telling us to keep things on time. And then Mary Beth Longo, who's a new team member, helping us to make it all work. So thank you, everybody, to make this work here. I think also there's a live chat.
There is,
I believe, live chat.
Yes.
So you can ask any questions, and we'll try to get to them also if you do that. So let's see here. I know we're going to talk about harvest and get a harvest report, because we get questions all the time in tasting room. But before we do that, a big shout out to our team. We are Finger Lakes, and the winery is on full peacock mode now with all the colors, and all the grapes are coming in. The tasting room was full today. You might hear in the background, but that's a Crusher de Stemmer running. We're sorting some Cab Franc, and everyone's really hustling. So here we are sitting in the library. It's great.
Completely relaxed.
So yeah. But it's funny. So again, cheers to everyone who's making this work. So let's see here. Maybe also, before I forget, can we do a little high five and cheers to the whole region? We just
absolutely.
got Wine Region of the Year from Wine Enthusiast, which created a lot of excitement with all the fellow neighbors and wineries. So cheers to us. Well done. Well done.
Cheers
everybody.
to us.
Cheers to
to
fellow
all of us.
friendly wineries. So harvest report. That's what we're talking about today. So we're also going to taste some wine, and maybe during or after. We'll see what happens. But since we're talking about harvest report, but nowadays most news reports are rather negative and focus on problems. So since you and me are not trendsetters, why don't we start with the top 3 problems of the
Really?
Yeah,
you're usually the one who brings the joy and the
but
the happiness.
I'm in sales. I'll turn to spin. I'll spin it around a little bit. But if you focus on what are the, because it's been a challenging vintage in a way. So
It has been.
Yeah.
I mean, where should I start?
With the water. The lack of water.
Okay. So we're still in it. We're maybe 3 or 4 picking days away from finishing the dry wines. Cabernet Franc is on the press pad right now. That'll be the last of the Cab Francs we bring in, but we're bringing in all the really ripe late harvest and reserve wines in the next 4 days, which is exciting. I mean, it's what you hope you get to in every vintage, to be able to bring in those level quality of fruit, those sugar levels from the different vineyard sites, HAW, Magdalena, Joseph, and Standing Stone. So, we're in that mode now. But it has been a fairly challenging growing season. I have to say that if anyone was playing baseball in May this year, it was a very challenging time to find dry fields, because it rained all the time.
The first harvest or vintage report?
Yes.
You played baseball in May?
Played baseball in May.
Yeah.
But from a viticultural standpoint, it was too wet to run tractors. It was almost too wet to plant our nursery. We were, I think the whole region, and I've talked to some friends on Long Island, the East Coast in general was really concerned about what was being set up for the growing season. And that continued until mid-June. And then all of a sudden, it's like the spigots were turned off. I sometimes I have this, living here on the property, you monitor your really, how things are going by, the grass and the ponds, and the ponds were full until mid-July, and then all of a sudden they stopped running, and now they're at the lowest point that I've ever seen our ponds here. So, we didn't have much rain, or if any rain, in July and August. And back to how that is affecting us now is some vineyard sites, some spots really got key rains at certain times, and other spots didn't. And you see that in the vines, you see that in the fruit as we're going through and starting to make selections. So by the first week of September, you could tell, hey man, these vines are getting stressed. We have to change our harvest strategy to fit that vineyard where it is now, not what we think that vineyard is going to be.
So when you say stressed, so the vines actually don't have access to water.
Correct.
And then when they don't have access to water, so most people think that, okay, it's glowing sunlight, it's dry, it's wonderful, which has its advantages because it's dry. But then it gets so dry that the vines no longer have access to water and they shut down.
Right.
And do they then not producing? They don't stop producing, and what happens then? Does that affect the grapes? Is that what happens?
Yes, I mean they will in very severe cases, which we saw some severe cases where the vine completely shuts down and starts losing its leaves. Now, the first thing it's going to lose is its leaves, and the second thing it's going to lose is its fruit.
Okay.
So we saw those in some younger plants, and we saw those in some spots on the southern vineyards, HAW and Standing Stone, where we have some really light soil, some kind of not sandy, but really shale, light, not very deep soils. Those were the first vines to show.
So when you say
stress.
deep soil, you mean not loamy, not a lot of organic matter,
Right.
not a lot of
Topsoil
or water retention
capability.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Got it. Okay.
And then as you went further,
So shale, which is deriving from clay. So usually shale also have clay in it.
It does. Usually your shale has clay sitting on top of it. And so clay can be your friend and foe in depending on the year. In a year like this, some clay is nice because it's going to hold water. But as soon as clay dries out, it's hard as a rock.
Yeah.
So HAW, we talk about HAW as a benefit a lot for farming here because the soils are fairly shallow. And so the vines are always a little stressed, and so the flavors here are fantastic. This year on certain spots we saw some of the most stressed plants. Same thing at Standing Stone, which has, Standing Stone is across the lake and down 3 miles, and you saw on the really light soils up on the hill, some vines get really stressed. And it's also a product of the kind of your macroclimate that's going on, but also the mesoclimate for each site. So there were passing storms in July and August and September that totally missed HAW and Standing Stone, but we got some nice rain
in the northern
at Magdalena and Joseph.
So our northern vineyards in general got some more rain.
They did. And also in the Magdalena and Joseph, you have deeper soils, and also more organic matter, so better water holding capacity in those soils and those vineyard sites. So it wasn't 100%. I mean, we saw on our Gruner site, really, the Gruner, if you want to talk water management, the Gruner was the place to look and see. you had this little mound where the leaves were completely gone, and you had the dips where the leaves were green and lush.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it's also, if anyone travels through Finger Lakes this year, a lot of people come and visit in September, October to look at harvest, or you look at the tree changing colors. It was a little bit of like a dull moment for a while there in September, and it was so dry, so there were no brightness, and you saw leaves falling and they're turning brown. And now, after we see some water, it's lush and is that something that goes parallel with the vine's behavior too, and also how it's producing energy to the plants?
It's hard to pinpoint that because you also have temperature that affects it.
Okay.
If plants have already shut down to a point, they're not going to all of a sudden turn their faucet back on. But it did certainly help to have some rains there. But overall, I mean, can I get positive now about the
No,
vintage?
I think you have only one
I have
negative.
one negative.
Well, water is a big negative, so you can kind of.
The other big negative is in the water discussion is that we're sitting on wells here for our water
Goddamn
system
wells.
for the retail shop, for our cleaning here, and we have been really lacking in our
Shale is
water
romantic
production.
when you talk about Riesling production, but it's not romantic when you talk about drilling wells.
Drilling wells for water.
Since
No,
I have to clean all the windows all the time, I have to use a lot of water.
you do. Oskar is the resident window cleaner here, and so
No, but you're right. That is a challenge to get.
Okay, so that's
wood.
my
Two.
second.
So it's water.
Perfect.
Water and water.
Good.
Okay.
So can I finish the harvest report?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think I think yep.
I haven't even gotten into it yet. Just talking about the season. So, I mean, the sparklings came off. They're absolutely fantastic. Really good bracing acidity. So in some cases, when the vine kind of turns the dial down a little bit, you're going to be left with pretty high acids because the fruit isn't continuing to develop.
Yeah.
And also, you can have low sugars. So
Because a lot of people that come, sorry, I'm going to interrupt you.
Mhm.
A lot of people come and ask,
No.
this must be good with the heat. The grapes dehydrate,
mhm,
but it also concentrates both acidity and
Yes.
sugar.
yeah,
So you could have if you have bricks, 18, 19 bricks, and it starts dehydrating, you get a really high acid, and you don't really get the sugars or mature flavors. Is that what-
mature
Okay, got
flavors.
it.
So as we were starting to look at Chardonnay, Gewürztraminer, the early reds,
Mhm.
like Blaufränkisch, we were tasting more than thinking about sugars. Tasting for
Okay,
flavors
flavors, okay.
more than thinking about sugar. In some cases, flavors were nice, and we were not even concerned about sugar. So bringing in something at 18.5 or 19 bricks is when I think about a year like 2024,
Mhm.
that would have been on the very low side. When I think about a vintage like 19 or 2014, those were kind of average sugar levels.
Mhm.
But the sugar at that point doesn't matter that much. It's about the flavor development. And
Okay.
so that's what we were really monitoring as we were looking at vineyards that were stressed or not stressed was, hey, do I have flavor to then pick? And also, should I pick this early to get that off because the vines are stressed and am I happy with the flavors?
So
And
I
it
think-
also, but last thing, it also
Mhm.
changed a lot of our strategies of where I had vineyards set up for maybe dry Riesling, where we would expect a certain sugar level. I changed them to semi-dry because of how the water was being dealt with by the plants.
So what I
lack of
think
water.
you're trying to say, if I can translate a little bit,
Okay.
so you downgraded the semi-dry. Did you see what you did
No,
there?
I did not downgrade the semi-dry. We were strategic
No,
about
that's right.
what to
So
pick
semi-dry
where.
usually is earlier pickle, higher acidity that you don't ferment dry. So I'm just
Yes,
translating.
so
I'm
that
just
was
translating.
that was your terminology, not mine. I was upgrading to semi-dry, get it in and healthy way.
But so again, the conclusion for this you're talking about stressed vines. It's also how you set the vines up for the winter. Like if a vine is struggling and trying to produce energy to a grape, and it can't do it. It goes into the winter very weak.
That's right.
So that's also a concern that we have.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's maybe also about fruit. So
in
you have
the
to
end-
manage that variable. The variable of drought is a conclusion that are not usually doing here.
Yeah, I mean, think about it from, if you're growing tomatoes in your garden, or if you're growing corn as a farmer, like, you're going to get that crop off no matter what happens to the plant.
Yeah.
Here we have a perennial plant that you're very concerned about the long-term health of the plant, and so you have to balance, what am I getting out at this moment? Is that the best that I can get for this year?
Mm-hmm.
And what is the long-term health of that plant? And so the conclusion, my overall conclusion about the harvest so far in reflection, which I've had only a few minutes to reflect on, because we're still in it, is that so much of this harvest was looking at the health of the plant and the quality of the fruit and trying to make sure that they were in line.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good conclusion
Oh my
for the negative part. And we have.
Well, I try to keep it positive. You know me, Oskar.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Are you, Jen? You have a?
Yes, we have some questions.
You have questions? Okay, great.
Before we move to
The positives, which we're very much looking forward to. First, there are some people that are very happy we're on YouTube, so
Okay, that's right.
yes, very exciting.
That's great.
And thanks
We're
for
happy
joining
to
us,
be-
everyone. Fred, the question is, you seem to have handled your negatives very well, so obviously you have had
Get out of his system into the picture.
you've had some experience with a vintage like this before. So the question does this remind you of 2012's? But my question to you is, what vintage does this most remind you of? Where did you learn how to handle a drought vintage like this?
That's a fantastic question. 2007, the year that we took over from Hermann, was for me the vintage that when we were getting into picking that, we were starting to taste 07s and say, okay, what did we do in 07? How did the wines turn out? Did we like what we did? Did we like what we handled? How we handled the vineyards? That for me is the most direct comparison. 12 is a good comparison, but we had some really good moisture at the end of August that set us up for not having to manage the health of the plants. 07, we were managing health of plants, and I remember very distinctly some of the Gewürztraminers, which were quote unquote young vines then still. HAW here was very stressed in 07s, and those are really interesting. Those are some of the wines that have aged really well, and so the acids that we were seeing in the beginning of September and to the end of September were running very parallel to what we saw in 07. So.
And now, 20 years later, maybe you're less stressed than you were in 2007 or so.
But that's probably true.
You have a little experience now,
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's great.
we do stress him out just as much.
As always.
That's right.
But I think 12, 8, 16, these ripe vintages had some timely rains to it. I think that's what the key difference is, that 07 and this vintage.
Yep.
But I think, it's interesting.
But
So,
can I mention one thing?
yeah,
Okay.
so the positive now.
Only positive is that, and this is going to derail completely, but
I'm here
I think,
to help you
okay, thank you.
put you back on track.
I think it's an important piece is that there is we also have a little bit different philosophy on our vineyard floor management now versus 2007. 2007, I remember changing, going into taking over from Hermann and having the vineyards pretty much set up to deal with the drought. We had removed all of the cover crop, we had worked the soils, everything was, basically the whole vineyard floor was brown, worked soils. This year was very different. We worked no soils in July and August. And it's a change in philosophy of what are you doing to the structure of the soil, in those moments when the soil really shouldn't be disrupted? Or what are you doing in those moments when maybe you should be removing?
Yeah.
And since we're not using any herbicides, you know, the cover crops were quite, I mean, they were burned out because of how dry it was.
Because
And so-
I think in '07 and some other dry vintages, we've tilled down
Yes,
to release some moisture
yes.
in the soil. That's what you're saying.
And,
you
but
did-
you also create this, the theory or the idea was that you would work the topsoil and create this barrier between the subsoils or the lower topsoil and your top layer, and you would remove all the competition of weeds and cover crop.
Yeah.
Now, the thinking is a little bit different, is that in that moment you're releasing too much nitrogen, number one.
Mm.
You're also setting yourself up for what we have noticed in climate change. I'm really derailing.
Yeah,
here.
we are bringing this to
Just
so
give me 30
completely different
seconds.
levels. Okay.
Okay,
So-
30 seconds.
30 seconds
So,
about nitrogen
What
and
we,
release some
also, what we also have noticed is
I'm gonna have
that
a glass of wine.
you should. You should go longer than 30 seconds. But what we have noticed also is that in the last 10 to 12 years, these really heavy rains that, so if you disrupt the soil and then it's just hanging out there, that you get these really heavy rains and then have very erodible soils. And so we have worked to not work the topsoil and come up with different ways to manage the subsoil. And it's a big
So
discussion.
it's a
And some of that's
nutrient and water
coming,
management.
yes, and some of that's coming out of the biodynamic farming.
Okay,
So
because that's also building up organic matter.
it is.
That is maybe for another day because this gets kind of very
That's for a
complex.
4-hour dissertation.
We might
on
do it, and then we have Mary Beth and Neil to cut it.
Yes.
We'll make a video where no one asks questions, just cut it.
Okay.
That's it. But thank you for the insight. It's very good, Fred. So let's do about positive things. Positive things about this vintage here. I think I have a few things that we're noticing.
Mhm.
Being so dry, you don't have disease pressure.
Correct.
So fruit's coming in clean. Now, Neil, I know you have made some videos. Is it possible to see? You had a video with the Chardonnay, early pick of Chardonnay. You see, if you look at this video here, where we have the team there. That's your father and to the left, by the way.
Yes.
Hardest working retired person on the planet here. So you see the fruit coming in here. There's almost no botrytis at all. Clean fruit. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
So that does affect basic things like the time it takes to sort, because that is usually a big bottleneck or labor that we have the team sorting in order to have clean must coming in. So you have earlier nights now. That's what Brianna, the winemaker Brianna, said. Like this year we end the day earlier.
Yeah.
Which is really matters. Now, Neil, do you have the other video that you took for October? I think you had. So you look the fruit here, which was, if you saw the first video, bright green fruit, probably picked for sparkling and so forth, right? Now this you get introducing a golden color. But when you look at the sorting this day, I don't know if that comes up, it will come a little later. You see, okay, so you see that the golden color, you might have a little bit of leaves coming in, and as you see now, we're starting to see the leaves there. That is really vines that have a hit. Leaves are coming. So now we have to, getting into it, we have to then sort these leaves that are falling off. So that is what we are then facing a little bit because of the drought, I think, that you have. So Neil, well done on taking those pictures. So you see here, that's the team, that's you sorting through. But overall, quick, not say easy sort, but a quicker. So that has been one positive thing, I think. And so the timing and the rhythm of things.
I mean, there's very little botrytis out, and that's been a
mildew and
versus 2024, which is on paper is a similar ripeness year in terms of heat, but a very different ripening year. than 2025. So in 2024 there was a lot of moisture to push ripeness, and also a little bit more moisture to create the disease pressure and betrays. And so, one of the wines we're going to taste here in a little bit, if we ever get to it, if I stop talking.
I was going to say that from the beginning. I think
know
that
you
was
were.
one of the negative feedback, is that we don't get to the wine, so we should probably soon start tasting wine.
We should.
Yeah.
So in
That's what we are
2024
here
we
for,
had
in
lots
the-
of botrytis, and
Yeah.
we're able to make some really great wines off that. There will be very, very little of that in 2025.
So the other good thing or negative things, what was the sometimes one of the challenges, bird pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So some dry years, grapes are the only thing that has moisture in it.
Yeah.
You get a lot of birds.
Yeah. I mean,
Did we have a lot of bird pressure this year?
yes.
Okay.
Way longer than we normally do.
Okay.
But every bird deterrent only works to about 20%. And so we had everything out. We had our cannons out. We had streamers. We had laser beams. We had
But the
drones
laser-
out.
Yeah, but before, scarecrows, that's what we had, one of those things that are going. But I think that with the laser, they're a little better, aren't they?
To about 20%.
All right. I just thought that we have them at Standing Stone on the. If
We have
people
a
see-
standing stone
Yeah.
and in Joseph, and they work to a certain percentage. Yes.
Okay. So because I didn't hear as many swear words this year as we usually have about birds. I was not there then, apparently.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I
We
thought
said it under our breath.
I thought we were doing positives.
No, that's
I thought we were doing
I actually thought the
positives.
bird pressure was.
Oh, you
Yeah.
thought it was a positive.
Yeah, but
no?
then it's
Okay.
okay.
Let's. Yeah.
I was going to do a bad joke also that the scarecrows, they're just out there outstanding in the field, but the lasers are outstanding in the field. That was my joke. Yeah, no.
Nope.
No. Okay, so positive things. Well, actually, one funny, if I can go and have a funny thing that happened in the beginning of harvest, which made us all laugh, was we got a Google review. That was like first day of harvest. There was someone who came from Florida, I believe, and they wrote this glowing review about their tasting experience. And then everyone was, so they said, had a great tasting, they geeked out with wine, and on the way out, we saw a handsome winemaker that jumped up on the forklift, and it was a great experience. And then everyone on the press pad, because I didn't mention the name, had either thought it was them or they had hoped it was them. So we had the interns. So the next day, everyone came with a straight back with a little spring in their leg, and maybe it was me. It was a great start at harvest. I believe it was your father they were talking about.
Oh, that's weird. Yes.
That was a good start of harvest, but not that important impact of the harvest. But what are the
No, but-
positive things that? So
The interns have been fantastic.
yeah, the team in general, not
the-
only
the-
interns, the team.
I was going to get to the whole
Okay,
team.
got it. Got it.
A whole harvest team. I mean, to bring in the amount of handpick that we do,
Yeah.
it takes a phenomenal team from 5:30 in the morning until last
Yeah.
night. The last grapes came in at 8 p.m. So it takes a phenomenal team to do that. Cellar team, we have presses to clean, we have tanks to move, barrels to get ready. I mean, it's a lot,
Yeah,
lot going on.
we
So
are
the whole-
are lucky to have a team like that
Yeah.
around us from everything.
Mhm.
And even again, tasting room and the whole team that helps us to make it work here in really hustle mode. So that's
Yes.
really cool to see. So shall we start taste some wine?
Before
Yeah,
you do,
okay,
we have a question from the chat,
Yeah.
if that's all right.
Yes.
A question about the fruit that was
Yeah.
coming in, about the condition of the skins, if they were any thicker or thinner due to the drought.
Good questions. These are
Yeah, it's
questions.
great.
We're going to get 300 levels.
Yeah, I mean, this is WSET, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
all levels here.
So the answer is yes to thicker skins, more durable skins, and part of, I think, what we saw, we had a rain period the first rain that we had during quote unquote harvest, so from September 1st until of any significance, we all of a sudden saw split berries in some blocks where the moisture was moving through the plants pretty fast because the skins were so tight and the skins didn't have elasticity to them. Whereas when you in the ripening period, from veraison on, and the plants are taking on moisture and ripening, and there's an elasticity to the skins. Once they're set, it doesn't take a lot of moisture to. And so we saw that in the third week of September, which was, again, it kind of throws for a curveball, because if that continues, then it sets you up for having to scramble to get blocks off. And I have to say, we were fairly patient, sitting, relaxing. No, but we were fairly patient and not overreacting to it. And I think the vineyards handled it really well. One thing I'd like to say is that the biodynamic farming has created these thicker skins. And so we've started over the last 7-8 years really working with thicker skins specifically on Riesling, to know how to work with them from the press in. So, how hard to press or to do skin contact. So that's a totally different subject, but
also the dehydration of grapes during the fall season then changes the ratio between skin and pulp.
It will.
So how does that, maybe that might be a follow-up question, how does that affect flavors and so forth? Does it?
Yeah, I mean, that is, yes, all of that will impact flavors. That is us then deciding, let's say on Cabernet Franc, to include stems or not include stems, or maybe not let everything pull off sooner on if we're sensing some light flavors because of either lack of development or early pick, that we're not going to let them sit on the skins very long. Looking at, again, Blaufränkisch or Cabernet Franc, if we're sensing a lot of flavor in the skins, then we will let them sit a little bit longer and extract a little bit more. But I think it's just reading. That's where I think this vintage is fairly tricky, and I think most of the winemakers in the region are going to say the same thing: is that you're reading all your different vineyards and the varieties that are on them, and having to make decisions almost on the fly about what should I do with this fruit, because this is what I'm sensing from the vineyard for this year. And it could be different than what we've expected in the past.
Yeah.
So
I think also, I know, Neil, you had set up a camera to show the map here, but I'm not sure if we either have time or effort. But next time if you come and visit the winery, you will see we have this map. Do we see it? We have this map where we put out the soil types here, AU, AT, and down in the corner, you can see the different soils, how shallow. Fred, you talked about depth of soils. So you can read here, you can see different lines going through the vineyard, and then how the different soils are through the vineyards have affected us quite a lot this year, because the different soil types have then changed. Could be vast difference. You have almost the same vineyards at completely different bricks levels. It was something not new, but it was a little drastic this year.
So I can tell you that we have picked Magdalena the Long Rose, which the Long Rose in Magdalena have made up the single vineyard Magdalena Riesling since basically 2002, where we started to use it as reserve wine, but since we've labeled it in 07. And this was the first vintage that I've picked in a different manner than we normally do. And normally we take the upper rows, which are plant material from the winery here. They ripen earlier. The flavors are really good at the early brick. we picked the lower rows first because the flavors came in there. It was really odd, and we've picked almost in reverse of what we normally do,
Okay.
based on the flavors coming in. Part of it was a soil, part of it also was a rootstock. How the rootstock is involved, I know, I'm
No,
sorry.
because we didn't talk about that.
Okay,
We didn't talk about the age of vines. That's important. Roots, or the root system.
no, the rootstock.
Yeah, I know the
Okay.
root system, but the root stock behaves different depending on the root stock. Some of them are more vigorous, and some of them have
Yes.
taproot.
Yeah.
So the root stock and the age of the vine, which affects the root system,
Yeah.
was important this year.
It was.
Yeah.
It was, and in a way that has been very different. And those are the types of things that I don't totally have, I guess, memory of 2007 of if they were different in 2007, and if that compares. I'm just looking broad brushstroke of 07 versus this year. But the really finite differences, this is the first year that we've picked in this manner.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Let's take some wine.
Let's do it.
All right. Julia field study. Those two wines that we had mentioned it in when we were talking about this live video that we tasted to Julia field study. It might be some new wines for many of you. You might not have seen this before. We called it Julia before, but now a Julia field study. It has to do with our nursery, the research site we have, we call Julia, where we have, since many years back, started to experiment with experimental varieties, mountain varieties from northern Italy, Austria, Switzerland, and Germany. Some of them are Asian varieties, and some of them are other varieties. So that is a little bit of a guiding light to it, almost like a lens into the vintage, depending on how all these varieties perform.
Yeah.
Because one of the ideas of these varieties is to see what does the future look like when the climate is changing, what is the technology is changing, when even trends are changing. So we have had these sites where we have these experimental varieties, but we also see how they will perform, for lack of a better word, depending on the vintage.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a wet year like 2021, you will have some of these varieties performing in a different way versus now drought, where you have some of these Rhone varieties like Marsanne, they will see completely different.
Mm-hmm.
So these two wines are really cool wines called Julia Field Study that we are, it's a little bit of geeky, but they maybe can tell us a little bit about the vintage. So how did these two wines perform this year? And maybe also we're tasting the 22 here that some people have at home.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk a little bit about the 22s that we're drinking, but also how these wines then, what they did this year. That's a long question probably. And you only have 1 minute.
Okay. 22, wonderful vintage.
Yeah.
Plenty of moisture during the growing season. Fairly dry, ripe harvest. A lot of young vines, especially on the newer varieties in these two.
In these varieties, we're talking about, Fermin, Gouais Blanc, Pinot Blanc, Sauvignon Blanc in there. There's all these varieties.
And so, fast forward to 2025, there are more vineyards planted, more varieties. As you mentioned, Marsanne came into production this year. Rotgifler came into production, very important variety. Gruner Veltliner came into production.
Another video.
Petit Manseng came into production. I don't think it's a totally fair assessment of the varieties because they are such young vines in 2025. I can tell you from a ripening standpoint and flavor that the Marsanne did remarkable. People are going to laugh at us growing Marsanne, but I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that does as older plants. On the red side, Julia, we had Schiava Tyrol to go. We had Pinot Denise come in production. Some Saperavi at Julia come in production. Again, I don't think it's a totally fair assessment, but you look at a variety like Lagrein, which we've had in the ground for a while, that did really well this year and ripened in line and had phenomenal flavor. We even had Nebbiolo ripen completely, which is
This is the first time.
shocker,
Yeah.
right? But I think overall, the Julia Fieldsley White and the Julia Fieldsley Red are going to be really interesting wines.
Yeah. And the taste profile of the ones that we have here in front of us are these, I don't want to, again, I repeat, old world, Austrian Swiss wines, lower alcohol, not so Riesling driven, so it's
Right.
not citrusy. They're a little bit more maybe earth tones to them. They're very nice.
They are.
And from these wines, we have then seen them, some of the varieties do very well, like Petit Arvin. So we planted an acre and a half at Standing Stone, Petit Arvin, based on how it did at Julia
Yeah.
Vineyard, and also Pinot Blanc. So there's some exciting. It's almost like they graduate from that field, and then they do well.
That's
and then we
almost
plant-
what these wines are supposed to do. They are supposed to give us information as a grower, but also as a nursery of selling plant material to other vineyards and wineries, and also with the possibility is that there is a variety that we have missed, that we have, and I mean missed as in like, no one's planted it or that give us an opportunity to reevaluate varieties that have possibly been left behind or not even evaluated within the Finger Lakes. And so that's what I'm saying. 2025 may not be the best vintage to show, to
25, as in what you're doing now.
to evaluate all the varietals. But you do see some that really did well.
So thank God we have 22 then.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to tell you, the 2025s that we have in bins and tanks are going to be fantastic. So,
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I think, if I can conclude that and then conclude a little bit what we are talking about. As a winery, when we have multi-vineyard sites, we are taking advantage of different sites that some is stronger than others. But same thing here with Julia wines, where you have experimenting with other varieties, you will see that with the erratic weather that coming towards all wine regions in the world, it's the diversity is important. You have diversity and risk mitigation of different sites, and not relying on just one site.
Right.
But also then varieties.
Yes.
Or different clones and so forth. So this is when we talk about the future of grape growing, this is a pretty hot topic with sustainability, financially sustainable, but also how does the wine industry move forward. So this is it's a cool project, and we'll talk more about that. And these are some neat wines. We wanted to talk about Julia, but we also wanted to talk about the 24. We just started to release the 24 vintage, so we could talk a couple of minutes about that too.
Yeah.
If there's not any other questions that we need to address, but if we can talk about 24, is that good?
We have some questions,
Oh,
but
you
I
have-
think we can do them maybe as a wrap up at the end to kind of cover
Yeah.
kind of the loose ends.
Okay, great.
Cool.
So we were trying to keep this to 45 minutes, but maybe we go over a little bit. I know in the old days when we had Facebook, we'd like to cut us off. It's like a Zoom. When you don't have subscription on Zoom, they just cut you off.
True.
I think we're in a better place now with YouTube. But anyway, so tasting 24s. Many of you have tasted them already, visiting the winery, because we released the 24 Flower Day this spring, late spring. We just released the semi-dry 24, and then we had this little bit of a rock star, Noble Select. So 24, as a recap of the vintage, almost comparing to 2020, everything fell in place. Timely rain, ripening, we had time to pick, and it was logistically a really good vintage. And we can capture all the nuances of the sites. So one of the more popular wines in the tasting room, it has been this flower day, which is now, I don't know if you have a camera on it or not, but if I can brag a little bit, there is a Demeter certified. So this is now the first certified biodynamic wine that we release. So we're excited about that, of course. But also it's delicious, which adds to it.
That's an important factor.
That's an important factor when you make wine, but they taste good. But yeah, so this Flower Day Riesling, did you have it already, or did I?
I did.
Okay. When you taste it, it's almost, we would say, fine herb, like not a bone dry. It's early picked fruit, and not fermented bone dry. So it has a little juiciness to it with low alcohol. So it's just right. It's a delicious wine. Good on you.
Oh, thank you. Yes, to our whole team.
Yes.
I appreciate
Yes,
that.
no, I didn't mean you.
No, but it's you know, it's funny that this is a wine that we've made now since 2019, and coming from the same vineyards here at HJW that we planted in 2009, and it has really shown this kind of light, fresh, really kind of lively, fresh fruit.
Almost a
and
little
it's-
electric.
Mhm.
I'm holding the.
I have that in my glass.
Oh yeah,
already.
okay.
Thank you.
So great, yeah, no, we're happy with again 24s in general. I think I'm not only speaking about Wiemer. I think Finger Lakes producers in general are like 24. We're happy with it. The reds, very few reds are being released just yet, but when they come out, they're really something.
Yeah.
24, the semi-dry, just released just a couple of days ago. Also representing the vintage quite well with juiciness. I think juiciness represents this vintage.
Yeah.
Maybe a little softer than the 23, but still bright. I like this.
Yeah,
This is very-
I think this is really like spot on for. You taste this with our with older vintages of Wiemer semi-dry. This is really spot on with what they tasted like when they were released, and I think you say a little bit soft in acidity, but I think there's so much fruit up front.
Yeah, no, I think maybe
Yeah.
soft acidity is the wrong word. You usually don't hesitate to correct me, so that's okay. But I think what's exciting about 24s, again, as we had the whole window of picking spectrum, the range of Rieslings are really showing off what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
You know, you have like they're distinct in its category. So the single vineyards are showing up like they are. It's really
Yeah, I
cool.
think the whole lineup of Rieslings, once they're released,
Yeah.
will show great. They really will.
But the other aspect to some of these single vineyards that we do is that they need age. They are made with a little bit grip, and that they need a little time to rest. So you won't see some of all the 24s. This one is a cool wine, by the way. It's delicious.
Yeah.
Noble Select. So this is not a full Trockenbeeren Auslese style, style, picked
But it-
in about.
But it's pretty close.
Okay, yeah. But so tell us about it then. Because it's not picked in like that 50 bricks or 40-50 bricks. It's in the 30 range.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking on the German spectrum here of Trockenbeeren Auslese, it only has to get to about 33 bricks. So this is definitely a classical Trockenbeeren Auslese style. This is a blend of HAW, a live HAW, a little bit of Magdalena, which had achieved that ripeness. There have been very few of these wines produced in the last 10 years from us.
I think that's why we're also
And-
excited about it, that the style has not been able to be made.
Correct.
Yeah.
And before that, from 2016 back, we were making a BA and a TBA almost every year. So this level from 2 vineyard sites almost every year. And then we went through a number of vintages where the growing season and the conditions just didn't give you the level of noble rot or the quality of noble rot that we were looking for to make this wine. And then all of a sudden, 2024, there was a just abundant amount of botrytis at this level.
This is, I mean, the acidity is great.
And the HAW and Yosef are still fermenting. That are
From 24?
from 24. Yeah.
How long is that going to take? But yeah, I had more questions about you about this vintage because you were worrying about, so as we are not inoculating our wines, we let it ferment on indigenous yeast.
125 or 24.
Well, I was talking about 25 because
Okay.
you were concerned about that drought will affect the yeast.
Yeah. I mean,
But is it, we think about skins because I don't know if that's
Yeah.
a thing. Do you see that in the, I don't know if there's winemakers or real winos from the Finger Lakes here, if they see that in their tanks, does it affect things?
I think, yes, I think people will see, I think we'll all see some challenges in fermentation. I mean, since we're not inoculating, we're relying on the natural native yeast for each vineyard site coming in on the fruit to then conduct the fermentation. I think some of the blocks will see some challenges or to get them dry. And again, that will be whether we have to pivot or not on a tank of Riesling to dry or semi-dry. I mean, we do that dance almost every vintage. I think we just have our antennas up to see if it's a greater issue on this. I mean, so far, I'll be honest, between Wiemer Rosé, Standing Stone, Saparavi Rosé.
These are you talking about these early picks?
These early picks.
picks,
Gruner Veltliner, which I was mentioning, we saw some stress in. They have all fermented dry.
Okay,
And so-
already.
Already.
So that's okay. So that's a good sign.
And semi-dry,
Okay.
2025
So your
is done.
concern that we had offline maybe is not a
2025 semi-dry is done.
okay.
All
Fast.
fermented.
Okay.
So
Great.
Wrap
Okay.
that up.
It is getting past
Okay.
6:45, I think.
time.
Very good. So there were some questions, Jen.
Yes.
Imagine.
Okay.
So we had a
Before we
couple
say
of questions earlier in the chat. We have some either budding viticulturists
Okay.
or some winemakers in the chat who are really curious and are asking some incredible questions, and I really love that. They had some questions about what we're seeing as far as pHs in our Riesling juice. Are they different because of the drought? That's the first geeky question, so I'm going to hand that off to you, but then I have a couple more, so
Let's, if it's okay, we'll finish off the geeky questions.
great.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so then we have also had a question about the Julia Vineyard.
Yeah.
In particular, any new varietals we might be planting, particularly one varietal that's made quite a bit of a splash with our neighbors down at Apollo's Praise. So I think you can probably guess that's Sharuba.
Sure, but yeah.
Yes. So have we planted that? Are we planning on it? Do we have any other surprises up our sleeves up at Julia? What else might be going on there? And then the other geeky question is, do we expect any kind of weirdness going on during fermentation with this vintage? As we know, sometimes the wines can stall out or go through a dummy phase during fermentation because of the drought. Will that cause any weirdness? Do we
These are-
expect that? Lots of fun, geeky questions.
But you can answer the fermentation, the pH level,
Yes,
it's almost together. right?
absolutely.
And then the varieties is that I think.
Okay.
Oh.
can-
And then I
okay,
have
okay.
one final question, but I want to ask that at the very, very end.
Okay, got it.
So pHs were very low at the beginning. They've stayed relatively low. Again, it is hard to just brush stroke and say everything's the same because it's different from different vineyard sites. But generally, our pHs have been fairly low, which is great. I enjoy working. Most winemakers enjoy working with low pH wines or moderately low. So pHs have been pretty low.
Okay.
And does that affect then the fermentation? If there's
Yes.
any, does that then maybe that protects this fermentations a little bit?
They
Because-
can. I mean, the malic acids have been really high, like almost like almost 0.9 level high malic, but we've seen that come down as it should over the last couple weeks. but pHs have remained good. I don't. I'm optimistic about all the fermentations.
Okay.
Maybe I'm always optimistic about all the fermentations. So
Not really. But that's okay. Okay,
and then
exciting varieties, which
exciting
is, I think
varieties.
we have, maybe not the variety that you were mentioning there, but there's many other varieties that we're looking into.
White varietal, we planted Albarino, we planted Sylvaner, we planted, I mentioned Marsanne, it's coming in production. I have some selections of Pinot Blanc that we brought in from Germany that are starting to produce. Traminer from Germany that we brought in. Those are the white varietals. The red varietals, oh man, we're going to go off the deep end here. Blauer Portugieser, which is a really fun variety.
None of us have a references to.
We planted Affenthaler in a
after
new
hours.
block in Joseph, and we harvested that for the first time this year for rosé. So we have a rosé of Blau, Frankisch, and Affenthaler. Super geeky, I love it. Other red varietals are, I mentioned Schiava, Tiraldigo. We planted a variety called Burger. Now, Burger, when you look it up, can be about 30 different varieties. So the Burger that we have, I think...
So the reason the name comes from different regions, is that what it is? Yeah.
Yep.
Because we've had that problems when we got some varieties from Switzerland and northern Italy, that they have different names because they come from different villages.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That will make it very complex.
Right. So I think the Burger that we have will be interesting to see. It's basically from Germany, the Württemberg area. We have
Scapatino. You have Scapatino, which is not new, but it's doing well.
Scapatino did very well this
Yeah.
year. Yeah. We have some really odd varieties called Tauberschwarz, which we'll see how that does. And I think that does it for the reds. Furburgunder.
Can we do next question? Because you
Yeah.
keep
I'm
going.
gonna
There's so
keep
many
going,
varieties
keep going.
that we put into the
Sorry.
ground.
That's okay. So what I'm hearing here is if you want to write in with your favorite obscure varietal,
Let me
maybe
know.
Fred will plant it.
No,
And
but I think it's just a conclusion. Because we have a nursery and we're doing all this research with varieties and rootstock, this is ever evolving. But there's things that we have committed to and not.
Yeah, I haven't even mentioned the French varieties that we've been. So I'll save that for another.
The Gueux Blanc,
discussion.
for example.
No, I have other varieties.
okay, we have one
Yeah.
final question.
Yes, but
And this actually doesn't come from the chat. This comes from me.
Okay.
And
Oh.
this is, I want you to be the first people to make the call on whether this is a fantastic vintage or not.
Ooh.
we're supposed to react.
No pressure.
No. When I think of a fantastic vintage, for me it is in our production and how we pick and how we sort and how we think about vineyards. Can you make sparklings at the beginning that are really in line with classically made sparkling wines from around the world, and do you get to dessert wines at the end
Yeah.
in the same manner? And so then lining up all the varietals and all the styles that we do along the way, are you able to do that? And I would say at the moment that there is enough dessert wine level wines out to call this a very, very good vintage. How about that?
That's a perfect answer.
That's great. Yeah. Shall we? It's
Yes.
exactly 7:00.
It is.
Okay.
We did well.
Great work.
Okay, so we're back on track. Great. If we don't have any more questions, I think we will leave it at this for now. And then we don't know when we will be back. We'll find a day, maybe somewhere before Christmas, or if there's anything else we can talk about. We'll be back, but there'll be communication around it. All right? Cool. That's it for now.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for joining us. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, my friend.
Cheers.
This semi-dry is very good, by the way. Cheers. Thank you. Thank you, Jen.
Cheers.
Yes.
Thank you, Jen.